has been brought to you by the letter
K.
Okay, so today is K Day, and that means we are going to do knapping. No, not that kind of napping. Napping with a K. K-N-A-P-P-I-N-G. Napping. Now, this is a K word not like knossos or that potato-y goodness knish, but sounds more like knowledge.
Knowledge.
Or not. Now, knapping means the shaping of a hard stone, usually flint, but sometimes others like obsidian.
Must be dragon glass.
Dragon glass.
The maesters call it obsidian.
To create tools, often sharp ones. Now, what makes flint so special, so very knappable, is that its crystalline structure allows it to fracture well, so the experienced knapper can carefully calibrate his or her strikes to produce the desired shape. And also, flint does have a tendency to retain its sharpness, so it's perfect for making stabbing weapons, arrowheads, another KN word, knives.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
So knapping is the process of shaping stone to create these tools. And for most of human existence, and even pre-human, because a lot of our ancient hominid ancestors also created these types of tools, this was essential for survival, tools for hunting, and weapons for warfare. Now, why do archaeologists care so much about these basic stone tools? Well, that's simple. These stone tools can be used to date stuff. Now, I know what you're thinking. You don't date stone, and by and large, you're right. You don't. However, you can date the stuff around the stone, particularly organic matter that shares the same stratigraphic layer. So once you establish something as a stone tool, you can date the stuff around it to tell you how long ago humans made those tools. And by the way, it doesn't necessarily need to be organic matter. Organic matter is very useful because you can radiocarbon date it. But if you remember way back when we did that news article about the ancient carpenters in Zambia at that Kalambo Falls site, remember we used a process called thermoluminescence, which you can use to date silica-rich sediments like sand. So anyway, once you do establish something as a stone tool, you can use the context around it to establish very long ago human activity. Or again, as in the case of Kalambo Falls, could even be pre-human activity. And this type of dating has been very important in archaeological history. For example, in the 1980s, this type of dating is precisely what was used to date human presence in Brazil way back 22,000 years ago, when at the time it was thought to be only 10 or 12,000 years. So they did this by dating stone tools. And later in human history, like the Neolithic Age or the Bronze Age, this type of stone tool making became enough of an industry and a craft with regular shapes and sizes and implements of tools that seriations could be created. So just by looking at a stone tool, you could figure out the time frame it was made by placing it in one of those seriations. So this became another form of dating later on. And there are people who absolutely love this stuff, classifying, categorizing, and labeling stone tools to the most minute level of detail. And there are all kinds of these tools. There are arrowheads, axes, knives, piercers or awls, scrapers, you name it, there's all kinds of flintstones. So this raises the question, how to recognize stone that has been worked by human hands versus that which is just broken naturally, And it's not a dumb question, because there is a process called thermal expansion and contraction, basically stone expanding and contracting with big changes in temperature. That does happen, and it causes stone to shatter. This is the same way that wood expands and contracts with changing temperatures and seasons. Sometimes it's hard to yank that door closed or open. And believe it or not, with extreme changes in temperature, wood can shatter. You see that in very, very cold places like Lapland. And some naturally shattered stone tools can look suspiciously like human-made tools. So much so that it can lead to acrimonious debates as people try to establish human presence even earlier in an area. And these pictures are coming to you, by the way, from Peterborough Archaeology. So, because of these debates, people needed a system that they could reliably use to classify stones, identify them as worked by human hands. Now, there are three primary traits of worked stone, let's just say flint, and a piece of flint has to have 2 out of 3 of these generally to be considered worked by human hands. Now, why not all of them? Well, because we know a lot of these stones have been subject to erosion or breakage in other ways, so some of the features may have been knocked off. First, there should be a striking platform. That's the place where someone struck a chunk of flint, which is called a core, with a hammer stone, breaking off a flake. Now, this striking platform should be flattish, which allows someone to get a clean shot at the right angle to break a piece off at the desired shape, and that takes a ton of time to learn how to do. You really need to get a feel for the specific stone and the tools you're using in order to really get the correct angle and the appropriate amount of force. Second, there should be a bulb of percussion. This is an area right below the striking platform where the stone bows out so it becomes like a bulb, and that's from the force of the blow that broke off the flake. Third, there should be ripples, and these radiate away from the bulb of percussion, and they're created by the same force that created the bulb of percussion, and that force dissipates as it spreads downward through the piece of flint. Think of it kind of like throwing a stone into a pond, which creates ripples. Those ripples in the water dissipate as you get further away from the point of impact. This image right here shows it pretty clearly. Now, generally, you've got 2 out of those 3, the striking platform, the bulb of percussion, and the ripples, and you're good. However, there is a 4th one, which is not necessary to have to declare it worked stone. And in fact, many of the simple tools don't even have it, but those are signs of retouching. Basically, for more complex tools like axes or knives that are very sharp or with serrated edges, this is very fine retooling of those edges to get them very sharp and to get them into the desired shape. But again, not every stone tool is going to have that. Now, as I said before, there are folks who are absolutely enthralled by this. For example, there's a YouTuber called Primitive Hunter whose footage I borrowed just before. So if you actually want to take classes and learn how to do this, I've put some helpful links in the description. It might seem weird, but they have hundreds of thousands of views. Flint knapping is a big business today. Personally, my favorite flint knapper is one of the most famous archaeologists in England. Sorry, Indy. He's with Wessex Archaeology, and that would be Phil Harding of Time Team fame. Anyway, this may seem like a simple topic, but it can get a lot more complicated. There's been a lot of experimental archaeology done on complex sites where this stuff was done on an industrial scale. Think about it. In really ancient times like Paleolithic and Mesolithic, people had a lot of time on their hands. Other than hunting and moving around, there wasn't much to do. So they sat around and they knapped a lot of flint, and they used it for everything. Even ethnoarchaeology can play a role, as there are many communities around the world today that still make and use stone tools, or even just keep them as ornaments or keepsakes. So who knew stone tools could be so complicated? And that's why we have K for knapping. Hey, if you like what you heard, give me that thumbs up below, hit that bell to subscribe, or if you want to support more independent archaeology content, consider contributing to my Patreon, where you can enjoy some exclusive members-only benefits and other goodies. Until the next dig.